Hey guys, Isabel here. Welcome back to Reeled In. I hope you guys had a super awesome, magical filled weekend. And I hope you're ready for a magical Monday because today we will be talking about Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore. In this video, I will be reviewing the movie. So just an overall note starting right about now. This will be a spoiler review. So if you have not seen the movie, and if you don't want to be spoiled, go and watch it if you want to, and then come back and watch me. So now, just to start off, saying, personally, my own personal opinion, I do not like the Fantastic Beasts series as much as I like the Harry Potter series. Just because I feel like it's missing a certain element. I don't know what that element is exactly. But out of the three of these movies, I did not like The Crimes of Grindelwald the most because it confused me the most. There's a lot going on, and I feel like wasn't really well explained in my own personal opinion. But going into it, I will say that Secrets of Dumbledore, it was okay. It wasn't horrible. I wasn't confused. I wasn't really that confused. And but it wasn't like the best thing I've ever watched. So the movie starts out with Dumbledore meeting Grindelwald, whether in real life or in some like in-between places where their minds are just connecting. Don't really have an idea about that. But they talk, and honestly, look, I love Johnny Depp. I liked him as Grindelwald. Was I happy about Johnny Depp being fired? No, not at all. But I have to say, I do like Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald. I feel like Johnny's portrayal of Grindelwald was a little bit too edgy, and comparatively age-wise, I feel like it just portrayed Grindelwald as being quite younger than Dumbledore when they're supposed to be the same age, and I think Mads Mikkelsen, he makes the age between them seem like how it's supposed to be. But right off the bat, Dumbledore confesses his love to Grindelwald out loud. Lily says the words, "I love you," essentially. For some reason, I didn't think they were going to do that. I thought it was going to be, not that I'm not happy that they did, say it loud and proud. But I feel like in the Harry Potter world, the fact that Dumbledore has been gay has kind of not been proved in the books. Not that they have to, but I was just for some reason surprised that they actually said it out loud. And another aspect of Grindelwald's character change is I think they did change the eye color, because Johnny Depp's eye was super blue and then brown, and then this one was like brown, and I honestly could not tell if it was supposed to be blue but just like a regular like human eye color blue, or if it was kind of like a little bit of like a gold. Couldn't tell, and I spent like half the movie just trying to tell what color his eye was. But an interesting choice, I think. Also, another reason why I liked this movie, I think a little bit more than the second one, is because this movie actually had a lot of beasts in them, and the beasts played an important part in the plot, and they all played important roles, whereas I think, the first one, I think had a little bit of that, but in the second one, I feel like just kind of had the beasts to say that they were beasts in the movie. The only ones that are really like, did a lot in the second one was the Niffler, and then the Asian cat beast, which I unfortunately forgot the name of, even though I just watched the movie. He had like a little role, but that was kind of it. So I am happy because we also learned, like it's in the first 10 minutes of the movie, you can tell that these beasts are going to be very important. So basically after the whole Grindelwald and Dumbledore scene, we get to Newt, and he's in a forest, what looks like a bamboo forest, and he is keeping track of a chillin. It's a mother, she's pregnant, she's about to give birth, and he's there for that. He's there to comfort her and there to help her through the process, and she ends up giving birth to a chillin, and then the bad people come. And okay, so when I first saw it, I thought it was a really cool nod, because as Newt is running, trying to save the chillin from these bad people, because they're trying to take the chillin, the baby chillin that was just born, the bad people, they fly at him Death Eater style with the black smoke and everything from the Harry Potter movies. Thought that was a really cool nod, but then I just remembered in the books, And of course, there is a book movie difference, but in the books, only Voldemort was able to fly, and it was a very new power, and his Death Eaters did not have that power. And this series takes place in the past, so before Voldemort. Like, Voldemort is going to be born in a couple years, I think. Like, he's not even alive right now. So I feel like that should not be possible. And like I said earlier, I know movie world and book world tend to differentiate on certain topics, but I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like that's kind of like, shouldn't be possible yet, because it hasn't been invented yet, is my thought process anyways. But among the bad people is Credence, and they take the baby. They take the baby chillin', and they like really injure Newt Scamander, because he falls off a cliff, I think, like into like a water river below. One surefire way to get me to not like Credence is him harming baby animals. So there you go. If that's what you're looking for, that's what you got from me, my reaction. But then Newt makes his way back to the Chillin, who is actually very hard to kill. It took like 3 Avada Kedavra curses to kill it, but it stayed alive. The Chillin, the mother Chillin, stayed alive for a couple more minutes to give birth to a twin, a second Chillin that Newt was there to take once mother died. Literally not me bawling my eyes out in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And I thought this when I first saw it, and I kind of wish they kept it, was that I thought there was going to be a parallel, because I had another thought process in my head on who exactly Credence was. But I thought the parallel was me for the 2 Chillins, one who went over to the dark side, and one who remains pure, who remains with Newt on the good side, is that it was going to be a parallel to Credence, and perhaps, because my theory was that Credence was like the embodiment of Ariana's Obscurus, because that was a big theory going around, and I'll get to that later when Credence is actually revealed to be who he is. So I thought that was the parallel, and I got super excited because I was like, this movie is going in a certain direction, and it didn't ultimately. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to not only have the Beast play a prominent role, but there was also like the parallel, like an obvious parallel, but a parallel nonetheless. But that did not happen. So not that my theories have to be correct or anything. I just thought like it'd be kind of cool if it was. And another thing that I did and I didn't like, and I'll get to the reason why I didn't like it towards the end, but we have some nostalgia moments. So we get Newt and Theseus going into Hogsmeade, and they go into the Hog's Head, which Aberforth, Dumbledore's brother, owns. But basically Theseus and Newt meet up with Dumbledore in the Hog's Head. Dumbledore seems to use the Hog's Head as his little like meeting grounds for people, and we saw that a lot in the books, and now we get to see it in the movie, which is kind of cool. But he's describing what happens to him if he tries to break the blood pact he made with Grindelwald. And so basically, if he has a thought of hurting or harming Grindelwald, the chain strangles Dumbledore, which is cool. And I liked how they actually put like scars and marks on his wrist to prove that like he has thought about it in the past before this moment. But one thing is that the chain always snaked around him, like around his wrist, like it was always just kind of like moving around no matter what. And Grindelwald, it was just in his pocket. In Crimes of Grindelwald, when Grindelwald had the blood pact, it's just like chilling in his pocket, not moving. So I feel like that was a little bit like a disconnect. But we get the exact same portrait of Ariana that we see in the Deathly Hallows Part 2, where Harry, Ron, and Hermione take the secret passageway through her portrait to get into Hogwarts. So that was also a nice little nod that I just enjoyed seeing. Now, to be totally honest, the way they handled all the characters was like a little hit or miss. But a hit for me, personally. My favorite character from this movie was Queenie. You could tell from the beginning, Queenie is not into what's going on, like what Grindelwald wants, but she's stuck. She's stuck and she can't get out of it for fear of her life, but she doesn't agree with it. And so she does these little things here and there to prove that she's still on the good side. And honestly, those kind of characters are ones that I like a lot. And I think the way Queenie was written in the script and how she handled all that was done really well. And you can obviously tell that even though Credence still physically does all these like bad things or things that we don't want him to do, you can still kind of tell that like he does have thoughts when Queenie says that she doesn't tell Grindelwald everything that he thinks. So I will say some of these characters in this movie went through a good amount of character depth, but not all of them, I think, were well-rounded characters. Speaking of characters, where was Nagini? You had her for like 10 minutes of the Crimes of Grindelwald movie, and now she's not even in this one. What happened to her? I was actually interested in her character. Did you put her in just for like a nod? Or like, what happened to her? Another character I liked almost as much, actually probably even more than Queenie's character, was Professor Hicks, the American Ilvermorny School charms teacher. I loved her spunk. I just loved the character. And she almost has like a positive attitude, and like nothing could really go wrong with her, because I feel like mentally she's like, I'm more powerful than anyone. You try to point your wand at me, I'll just apparate somewhere else. Like, I just really liked her. I thought she was really funny. But I think we did get some like new forms of magic that I don't think we have seen beforehand with like the Harry Potter movies and also with the other two Fantastic Beasts movies. And I think it's a very more like physical way to use and express your magic, which I think is interesting, but also got a little bit weird towards the end of the movie. And I will get back to that when we get towards the end. Honestly, with Bunty, they left me 50-50 with her because I didn't trust her. Even in Crimes of Grindelwald, when she was only in the movie for like 4 minutes, I still didn't trust her. Didn't trust at the beginning. I didn't know if she was a trustworthy character. I don't know. She just seemed a little bit like, I feel like she could have easily, for the same reasons as Queenie, gone over to Grindelwald's side. But that 50-50, me being on the fence of her, made me like her character a lot. I thought she was really intriguing, and I'm glad that we got to see her taking in a major role on like these secretive plans. And we find out that she is smart and clever. And I'm really glad she wasn't a flat character like I was kind of fearing her to be. Or just like the love interest that, the love is only one-sided essentially. I'm glad that we got a lot more like character depth to that character. But then we're all on the train with Professor Hicks, Jacob, Newt, Theseus, and Bunty, and Yusuf as well. We're all on the train, and we're all sort of going over a plan that no one really knows the plan, because they're trying to not plan to keep Grindelwald out of their plans, because Grindelwald can see like parts of the future without using his skull hookah thing now. But Dumbledore gives Jacob a wand. And from the trailers, we think Jacob is going to have some magical powers, but it's a fake wand. It doesn't have a core. So, and this is, all of these comments are me going off of seeing the movie once. I have not seen it again, even though I kind of want to, because I just kind of like want to like rewatch it and just really focus on like what exactly is going on in the movie. But what was the reason to give Jacob a wand? I would say it would be because this time Dumbledore was actually 10 steps ahead of everyone with the assassination attempt scenario, and how Professor Hicks helped create the illusion that Jacob was able to use magic. But that wasn't exactly an illusion, because the newspaper says Muggle gone mad and tried to assassinate. So they know Jacob is a Muggle and did not use magic, actually. So, not really sure. And I feel like it was a little bit, for the trailers, a little bit of a mislead. Because I feel like trailers, like you watch them, you go into the movie, and you're ready for this kind of vibe you're going to get from the movie. And I feel like the trailer misled us with that. So I wasn't too happy with that whole thing. I was super excited to see Jacob, maybe be a Muggle-born or something, and then he wasn't. And don't get me wrong, I loved Jacob's character in this movie. I thought he was written really well. He was really funny. He was definitely the comic relief, but like not just there to be a comic relief. But with the whole wand thing, I'm like, I feel like there's a different way that could have played out without, giving false hope or, making the viewers ourselves go in thinking something that's not actually going to happen. And also, this movie did not have Tina in it, except for maybe like 5 minutes at the end of the movie. Tina comes back in, and I don't know if this was an issue with the actual actress herself, who just could not, like there was like a scheduling conflict or something, she just couldn't make it in the movie. I don't know what happened to her. I really enjoyed seeing Tina a lot, like in the other movies, and I'm like, why is she not in here? I love her and Newt's dynamic. You can tell Newt is literally in love with her, like eyes for no one else, and I'm just kind of like, where is she? But eventually we go to Germany and we get thrown into another country's Ministry of Magic. Germany's very like militaristic, so I think they're going for World War II vibes, even though World War II was like still a couple of years off. It hasn't happened yet. But this movie was also sprinkled with a little bit of Dumbledore quotes, some old and some new. So I did enjoy that. I love myself some Dumbledore quotes, some wise words of Albus. Also, still no explanation on how McGonagall's even alive right now, because this is a couple years before she's born. She's not supposed to be in this time, or as old as she is in this time frame. So I'm thinking now that's just like a miscite on the producer / writer of the script and the people who directed this movie, and Credence of Grindelwald as well. But basically they go to Germany to try to get the German, I think it's the Prime Minister, to keep Grindelwald on trial, because there was like a vote to drop all the charges against him for all his crimes. But that falls through because the German Prime Minister, I'm assuming who that is, I actually don't even know, chose the easy way, not the right way. So we get some quick cutscenes to Aberforth in his pub, and we see writing appear on the mirror that he's always wiping off. And earlier we had a scene where Credence was also writing, or was receiving writing on a mirror. And my first thought was the two-way mirror that Sirius gave to Harry in the Harry Potter books, but in the movies they didn't show this scene. So in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Harry just kind of shows up with like a piece of this mirror, and he keeps seeing like a blue eye who he thinks is Dumbledore, but it's actually later revealed to be Aberforth, who's been keeping an eye on Harry through this two-way mirror thing. So I kind of think that's what this is a nod to. If not a nod, then it actually is part of the two-way mirror. But then we get back to Dumbledore. He is walking along the street and Credence is tailing him. What I think is interesting but also confusing is that Dumbledore seems to always take his fights with people like into a different realm, almost like a mirror dimension. So when he did this to Credence in the Deathly Hallows Part 2 movie, when Harry dies, him and Dumbledore talking in a white and bright out and washed out version of the King's Cross train station. Well, this scene almost looked like an inverse of that. So it's like, it wasn't a train station, but it was like black and foggy and basically just taking the whiteness of that landscape and turning it black, essentially. So that's what I was reminded of as he's actually fighting with Credence. And honestly, one thing I am disappointed in this movie is Credence's character. My personal opinion from the trailer and from just like press releases is that Credence is supposed to be this super powerful being. He is part human, part Obscurus. And then when he's fighting, it's like the Obscurus just kind of like came out of nowhere. It's supposed to come out of himself. And I understand that like as he gains power, he also supposedly gains control over this creature that is inside of him, the Obscurus. But it's like as he was doing magic, he was like ripping up tile, like street cobblestones, and the Obscurus was just like coming with the cobblestones as it was being ripped out of the ground. So I think it's interesting that's how they chose to portray Credence's obscurial form. But I also don't think it makes a lot of sense for them to have done that. But I guess he's not as powerful as he thought he was, because Dumbledore defeats him in like 2 seconds. And I know Dumbledore is a powerful man, but I was under the impression Credence was kind of supposed to be his equal in power. But we find out that the Phoenix is following Credence around because Credence is very close to death. The power the Obscurus has over him is taking over. He's going to die soon, essentially. But what I did think was interesting is that when Dumbledore defeats Credence momentarily, the obscure part of him, like, leaves Credence's body. And the Phoenix comes in and, like, flaps its wings. And every time it flaps its wings, the obscurial matter, like, pushes back. And Phoenix have healing properties. Phoenix tears have healing properties, so I just thought that was really interesting. And if they make more of these Fantastic Beasts movies, I wonder if the Phoenix will have an integral part in maybe healing or easing Credence's pain. So honestly, I try not to go into movies expecting too much, but I'm not really sure what I was honestly expecting from this movie in the first place. All I know is that the first like hour and a half, it's not really what I thought it was. There was a lot of like cards falling into place, like, because they split off into teams. So this team had to do this, and this team had to do that, and make sure that this went that way, or tried to make sure it went that way. And so there was a lot of like steps that had to come together before like the big climax could happen. And I don't mind those kinds of movies. They actually interest me a lot. But my understanding was that they were going to try to make 5 Fantastic Beasts movies. And I feel like for all of this to happen in the 3rd movie, it's a little bit of a lot, because there's a lot of things you have to hold on to make sure you remember, so the ending of this all makes sense. But Theseus gets captured from the German ministry, and Newt's got to go save him, and he interacts with this very funny Fantastic Beast, and it's the famous swivel scene that I know has been in the trailers and talked about a lot. And honestly, that whole scene is my favorite scene in the movie. And Pickett and Teddy, is the Black Niffler. Honestly, I didn't know I needed a Pickett and Teddy team up until I got it on screen. They're hilarious, they're cute, and you wouldn't think you would get so much emotion out of basically a twig. But we did. And finally, we are back to Hogwarts. They've decided to use Hogwarts as their home base, which, again, I have like a 50-50 feeling on it, because as much as I loved seeing Hogwarts again and hearing, the musical themes from the Harry Potter movies, it's also kind of like, I feel like we spent a little bit too long at Hogwarts. They used the Room of Requirement basically as a portal room, or a port key room, and I'm like, well, you could have done that with anywhere else. But I guess we had to go to Hogwarts so we could spend more time at Hogsmeade, because we had to know a very specific piece of information, which is that Credence is Aberforth's son, which, hold on. Okay, so Aberforth has a son. He fell in love with a girl from the Hollow, Godric's Hollow, and he had a son. I don't mind this piece of information. Am I a little bit heartbroken it wasn't something super cool, like Credence being an embodiment of Ariana's Obscurial? Yes. But it's just the way we found out. We found out through Newt listening in, and Dumbledore essentially telling in whispers that, like, he's your son or something. So, like, I still gasped when I found out, but also I was like, this has been a question for a whole movie, and now half of this one, on who exactly is Credence, because I think we all knew that Grindelwald was lying about Credence being both Dumbledore's brother. So, and then just have it kind of like revealed through a whisper. I'm kind of like, okay, you built up this whole, everyone is having theories for years, 3-4 years, and now it's like, oh yeah, your son. I'm like, wait a second. Also, I'm pretty sure it was implied in the books that Aberforth had some relations with some goats. But also, back to the title, Secrets of Dumbledore. I think it's Secrets of Aberforth Dumbledore and not Secrets of Albus Dumbledore. Because him loving Grindelwald, the fandom who has read the books and has been in the Harry Potter fandom for a long time, we've already known this, so not really a secret. But even though Credence wasn't Ariana's Obscurus, it was confirmed that Ariana did in fact have an Obscurus. She was an Obscurial. So like 50-50 win, essentially. Also, one thing I thought Jude Law did really well as Dumbledore is in the books and in some of the movies, Dumbledore is kind of known for being this like soft, quietly spoken man who kind of, is always one step ahead but gives the benefit of the doubt to everyone. Like when you think of a teacher, that's, what a teacher should be. Always hesitant to give out punishments unless they are super deserved. But every once in a while, he will get stern. And it's a very quick thing that happens, and it takes you, the reader, and the character who's getting the stern voice from Dumbledore by surprise. And I think Jude Law did that portion of Dumbledore very well, because he does get quite stern with Newt in this movie at a point in time. So I did like that a lot. Another character I was disappointed with was Yusuf Kama. He basically took the role that Snape had in the original movies, basically is a spy for Dumbledore, but also staying on the inside of Grindelwald's gang, trying to get information. And so there's essentially a scene where everything's coming to a climax, where Professor Hicks and Theseus, they get cornered. They're about to be stopped by Grindelwald's goons, and then Yusuf walks up, and it's supposed to be like a will he, won't he kind of thing. We all know he won't, because we all know he's the Snape character and is gonna be on their side. So when he turns around and magics all the goons into unconsciousness, I feel like it was supposed to be like a relief, like a joyous moment, but it's we knew this was gonna happen. Okay, it's fine. And I won't lie. So they have this brilliant plan, and I like this part of the movie a lot, is that they replicate Newt Scamander's case, and they make 6 pairs of identical replicas of Newt's case. And Dumbledore, being the brilliant man he is, without actually telling Newt, makes Newt believe that he has his own case. And this is why I liked Bunty's character a lot, because I could tell immediately she wanted half a dozen cases made. That's 6 cases. And then when they line them all up for everyone to take their own, there's only 5 cases. And after everyone portals through, Bunty's left behind. So I was like, something is not adding up. And I don't trust Bunty, but also maybe trust Bunty, not really sure. Still at this point. But then we see this figure, and she is clad in a black garb and headdress as well. And you don't see her face, you just see her from behind. I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was Tina. I thought Bunty had given the 6th case to Tina, and I was super hoping, because Tina hadn't been in the movie the entire time, that this was going to be Tina coming in to save the day. But it wasn't, and I am actually glad that this person was actually Bunty, who had the correct case the entire time, because Newt, they pulled a fast one on Newt. So disappointed it wasn't Tina, but also happy it was Bunty, because I think it really solidified the kind of character that she was. But basically, it's found out that the Chillin that Grindelwald had, he killed and then re-zombified. And so then when the real Chillin, the alive one, comes out, I was a little bit disappointed that it first bowed to Dumbledore. And I feel like it did this for one reason, because after Dumbledore died in the 7th book and the 8th movie, there was all of these, the life and lies of Albus Dumbledore. There was a lot of questionableness to his character. And I feel like the reason why they had the Chillin bow to Dumbledore was to prove that, like, yes, he may have done all these questionable things, or what people thought were questionable things, and maybe not even great things, but still was like a pure soul, essentially. So like when it bowed, I was kind of like, really, like him? But then again, like, I guess it is also to prove that Dumbledore is the man. Is and always has been the man. But essentially the Chillin actually bows to the woman who will end up running the whole Wizarding World. Also, confusion. So the whole thing of this whole scenario is that Grindelwald is trying to run as the leader of the Wizarding World. And please tell me if I'm just blanking or if I've just forgotten a very important piece of information. But from the numerous times I have read and listened to the Harry Potter books and watched the movies and read on the lore and everything, am I the only one who is not aware that there was a ruler of the entire Wizarding World? Am I the only one? Because I'll change my tune if I am the only one. But I feel like that's a big thing to just throw into a movie and have everyone just kind of accept. But Grindelwald, he gets so angry that his plans have been foiled, and Credence is dying, and he stumbles towards Grindelwald all angry because he finally found out the truth that Grindelwald lied to him, and Grindelwald goes to kill him. And both Aberforth and Albus Dumbledore shoot across to protect him, to protect Credence. And then by doing this, the blood pact breaks. And their explanation is that Grindelwald was aiming to kill, but Dumbledore was aiming to protect. But I think there's a different reason. I think the blood pact, and blood is the essential word here, was between Albus Dumbledore and Grindelwald, but also who has Albus Dumbledore's blood? Credence. Credence has Albus Dumbledore's blood. And it was just enough of a Dumbledore's blood to not kill Grindelwald for trying to break the pact, but it was enough of a Dumbledore's blood to, I think, shatter the blood pact that was made. Because you had like 3 Dumbledores, essentially, going around, fighting. But after that, Grindelwald and Dumbledore, they get into a fight, Harry v. Voldemort style, with the laser wands and, you know, the strands of magic connecting to each other. Very Harry and Voldemort in movie 4 and movie 7 and 8. And again, they're in this weird mirror dimension that isn't actually taking place in the real world, but it's still happening between them. Where are they? I don't think this has been done before in the Harry Potter movies or was talked about in the Harry Potter books, so I'm confused as to how this is happening. And then another thing I remembered from watching the first and second movie is that there was a prophecy in movie 2. I feel like they didn't, I might be missing it, but I feel like they didn't really continue through with that prophecy in movie 3, even though I think one of the lines was like rising through the water or something, and the logo of Secrets of Dumbledore behind the title is like a phoenix made out of water rising. So I was assuming that we were going to get a bit more of the prophecy and maybe have that section of the prophecy like closed out. But I did not see any of that at all. But if you guys saw it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And I'm really glad that wasn't the final battle between Albus and Grindelwald, because that was like 2 minutes long and very physical. I was not aware. Did people just did they just fight like that in the 1920s/30s? It was a lot of like physical and like grappling a little bit with each other. And I get that you have the emotion of like they're pretty much, well, Dumbledore is like in love with him, and they have that moment where their hands are on each other's hearts, so they just can't kill each other just yet. They don't kill each other at all, actually, because Grindelwald just gets imprisoned eventually. But I'm kind of like, okay, like that's not how we've seen magic, you know, being used in combat, and anything that we've had that was in the Wizarding World. So not super against it. I just wish there was something else to prove that we had seen it before, and so it's not super jarring to the audience. Well, it was jarring to me, but I don't know about you guys. But basically, Queenie, they save Queenie from Grindelwald, so she's back, and she's accepted super readily back into everyone's arms. I am kind of okay with this. I know a lot of people could be not a fan of this because it's not like she had any consequences for going over to his side, but because they brought her up to be, like, you could immediately tell she was not for being with Grindelwald, and did a little bit of her part to, like, help, you know, at the very least slow down Grindelwald. I wasn't super upset with people, like, you know, just bringing her back into their arms. But I know that some people could be upset about that. But her and Jacob get married, finally. Although they made it seem like Jacob was in the wrong for his reasoning of not wanting to get married to Queenie, which I don't think is great, because I feel like Jacob's reasoning was valid. Like, they were both in the wrong, but both in the right. I feel like him and Queenie, but I feel like it kind of undermined Jacob's reasoning for not wanting to marry Queenie literally, like, right away. Because he wanted to get married, just not, like, right away. He wanted to figure things out with, like, the law, and, you know, if they did move, where would they move to? I just feel like that was, like, an invalidation of his feelings towards the whole thing. And Tina finally returns, and her and Newt, they get a little time together out on the street in December. They don't have any coats on. But literally him and Newt and Tina's, you know, interaction was literally like maybe 2 minutes long, but I loved the interaction. I really wish Tina was in this movie a lot more. She probably was in the movie, because I feel like if she was, she would have solved the whole thing in like an hour, and then we would have sat there for like an hour in the movie theater. And then we end on the marriage scene. Albus stops by briefly to chat with Newt, but Albus never goes into the wedding, and he walks off alone into the street. And I feel like that is actually a really good representation of Albus Dumbledore and how he is throughout life. I feel like no matter how many teachers he surrounds himself with, or, you know, the Dumbledore's army, or, you know, group members or anything, he is technically always alone. And I feel like that is his punishment for himself, for, you know, for what has happened between him and Grindelwald. So, put me a little bit in my feels seeing him walk away alone, but I understand it, and I did like that ending, because I can understand Albus's feelings for that. But the movie ends, and I am left questioning. So Aberforth finally he takes responsibility as a parent, and he takes Credence home with him. Credence is dying. We do not know if he's still alive right now. I'm assuming he is. We don't know what's going to happen with Credence. To be totally honest, I thought Credence was going to be a antagonist until the very last movie, because I think there's supposed to be 5. And it was honestly a big defeat for Grindelwald. I feel like he lost a lot of his support from the people he was manipulating when he lost the world wizarding competition. I barely even know what was going on, to be honest, with that whole competition thing. I have no thoughts on where he's going to pick up if they make another movie. Everything has kind of settled a little bit right now. I mean, it was a good movie. It fell a little bit flat, in my personal opinion. There weren't really any stakes throughout the movie. Like, yes, things did go wrong, but almost immediately they worked themselves out. Nobody died, and I feel like you could have had at least 3 people die in this movie. And honestly, I feel like someone should have died, personally. And don't get me wrong, visually, this movie was visually very amazing. It had good scenes. Some of the action scenes were really great. I thought they were really great. But I do feel like this movie was relying a little bit too much on being a visual masterpiece, and also on nostalgia. So going back to what I said earlier, how I liked the nostalgia bits, but there was also part of me that didn't like it. The fact that I think the movie relied too heavily on them is why part of me doesn't like it. So the whole, you know, going back to Hogwarts, Hogsmeade, throwing in lines and, parallels to the Harry Potter movie. I think they were hoping to get a positive reaction from the audience by throwing these things in there. But that is just my opinion. If you guys disagree with me, that's totally cool. That is just what I think. And honestly, it's up in the air right now if they're even gonna continue this series. I heard it really depends on the reaction that this movie gets, if it's a positive reaction or not, or if it does well in the box office or not. I didn't hate the movie, but it wasn't the best movie I've ever seen. I just feel like the Fantastic Beasts series is missing just a little bit of something, and I honestly can't think what it is, but I hope you guys can think of it. But something that just makes me sad is that, like, this whole series, my thoughts on it are 50-50, but I feel like the fandom itself, the Harry Potter fandom itself, is in a 50-50 split, and a lot of it is not uncalled for. I've seen posts and messages of people telling other fans not to see this movie because of the author, the producer, and her thoughts and opinions on certain topics, and her hurtful thoughts and opinions on these topics. And there is a call not to support her financially, and it just makes me really sad that we are in a split right now, and that there is even a reason for a split. But I went to see the movie because I have been a Harry Potter fan since I was 2 years old. I do not at all agree with what has been said against the trans community. I do love the Wizarding World, and I do want to get more information on the Wizarding World and see the Wizarding World and soak in whatever the Wizarding World has to offer us. So a part of me hopes that they make the other two movies, and honestly, I'm a little bit tired of these Fantastic Beasts movies. Another part of me wishes that these movies started off as books first and someone else wrote the screenplay, because I feel like there's so much detail that has to be put into this that in shortening it to a 2.5 hour movie, I feel like details that are important are getting lost, and that's why this movie series is not holding up as it should, I think. Again, my feelings on this whole movie itself and the Fantastic Beasts series is 50-50. It's not my favorite, but I don't hate it. But if you guys love the Fantastic Beasts series, if you loved this movie, I'm really glad. I really hope this movie gets some love, especially because, the actors themselves, they worked so hard. The performances, for the most part, I thought were pretty good in the movie. So I hope there are those of you out there who really enjoyed the movie. And if you didn't enjoy it, I'm really sorry you didn't. But only time will tell what will happen in the future with the Fantastic Beasts movie series as well as the Wizarding World. So that has been my review for Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore. Should have been another title unless you meant Aberforth Dumbledore, because we didn't get any secrets on Albus Dumbledore, at least not anything we didn't already know and or theorized. But overall, I'll give the movie like a 72. I could tell what I was trying to do, but it just fell a little bit flat for me personally. But yeah, that was my review. So be sure to leave a like on the video, comment, what are your honest thoughts on this movie? And be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you want to upload future Wizarding World and Harry Potter videos. That's all I've got for you today. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.